Today, we're diving into something pretty wild. It's a theory from the deep corners of the internet that claims to uncover a secret history of our world. We're talking about a conflict so ancient, so massive, it's been completely erased. A hyperwar that, according to this source, didn't just topple empires, it literally reshaped reality itself. Okay, let's just get right to the heart of it. The central question this whole theory asks is absolutely nuts. How did a war fought 40,000 years ago end up flattening the Earth and destroying the moon? Yeah, you heard that right. According to the author, mainstream history has zero answers. But the story of the hyperwar? It claims to have all of them. So, to even begin to understand this, we need to meet the two absolute superpowers who fought this war to a bitter, world-ending standstill, pretty much wiping each other out of existence. In one corner, you have the Great Han Empire. Think of them as a hyper-advanced technological civilization that spanned all Eurasia and had colonies scattered across the galaxy. And in the other corner, we have the ancient Finnish Empire, the Suomi. These guys were masters of the mind. We're talking sorcery, psychic warfare, and something the source calls weaponized memes. Two absolute titans at the peak of their power. Now, this is super important. This wasn't a war where one side wins and the other loses. No. This was total mutual annihilation. The devastation was so complete that pretty much no archaeological evidence survived, which forced researchers looking into this to use a very different method to find answers. So you're probably thinking, wait a minute, no physical evidence? Then how could anyone possibly know about this? Well, according to the source, the truth isn't dug up from the ground, it's awakened from within. This method, which the author calls truth by revelation, claims that the national spirit of the descendants, so modern Koreans and Finns, can actually deliver repressed ancestral memories of these events. It's a history based not on artifacts, but on feeling. Using this, let's call it unconventional method, researchers developed a few different theories about how the hyperwar actually ended. So let's take a look at the three main ideas that have been floating around until now. So this table breaks down the three competing ideas. First, you've got the HAP theory. This one says the Han developed a devastating psychic weapon, which the text calls weaponized autism, and used the pyramids to launch it. Then there's the SMA theory, which suggests it was Suomi memes that mutated and caused the collapse. And finally, the HASP theory is kind of a mix of the two, saying the Han made the weapon, but the Suomi controlled the pyramids. But here's the thing. Our source material argues that every single one of these established theories is just wrong. They're full of contradictions, and more importantly, they completely fail to explain the biggest, most dramatic outcomes of the war. All right, let's start with that first one, the Han autism pyramids theory. The idea is that the Han, backed into a corner, unleashed this psychic superweapon from the Giza pyramids. But when you look closer, the logic just completely falls apart. As you can see here, it breaks down on three main fronts. First, the logistics are a nightmare. How could the Han, who were under siege in Pyongyang, activate a weapon all the way over in Egypt? Second, strategically, it's just dumb. Why on earth would the advancing Suomi army not secure a potential superweapon? And finally, it just doesn't fit their vibe. Mass sorcery? That was the Suomi's thing, not the tech-heavy Han. The other two theories don't really do any better. They might solve one problem, but they just create new, even bigger ones. The SMA theory, for example, can't explain why the Suomi would end up being the main victims of their own weapon. And the HASP theory leaves this giant plot hole. If the Suomi controlled the pyramids, how could the Han possibly use them to attack? But honestly, the biggest flaw, the one that sinks all three of these theories, is what they just completely ignore. Exactly. None of these theories even try to explain the most insane results of the entire war. How did our planet get flattened? What happened to the real moon? The fact that the old models are totally silent on these points, well, it suggests they're missing the entire point. And that brings us to the new theory proposed in the source material. This one claims to explain everything the others missed. It's called the Hwanimian Pyramid Suomi Nexus Theory. This theory completely flips the script. It says, no, it was the Suomi, the masters of psychic warfare, who developed weaponized autism as a first strike weapon. But the Han, being masters of technology, saw the attack coming and brilliantly used the Suomi's greatest weapon against them. This new theory is built on several key truths that, according to the author, have been revealed and are pretty much undeniable at this point. So this new model rests on a few core claims. First, that the Sumi were in fact the main victims of the psychic plague. Second, the pyramids at Giza were always under Hawan control. Third, and this is a big one, the pyramids weren't weapons at all. They were faster-than-light communication arrays. And finally, a new player enters the story, an alliance between the Sumi and a mysterious civilization from Atlantis who were apparently connected to these incredibly powerful cosmic beings called the Old Ones. So the crucial takeaway is this. The author is basically saying that the old story, that the Han created this psychic weapon, is just pro-Finnish propaganda. The revealed truth, as they call it, is that the Sumi built it as a first-strike weapon, and their whole plan just backfired in the most spectacular way imaginable. Okay, so now let's walk through the final, terrifying moments of the Hyperwar, as pieced together by this new unified theory. Buckle up. Here is how it supposedly all went down. 1. The Swami launched their big psychic attack. 2. Xuan intelligence sees it coming and prepares a countermove. 3. The Xuan used their Giza communication arrays to reflect the attack right back at them. 4. The entire Swami high command is instantly wiped out. 5. In a final desperate act of spite, the surviving Swami sorcerers summon a literal godlike being, an old one, which leads to step 6. The Xuan summon their entire interstellar fleet for one last battle, and that's when reality itself breaks. The battle between the Han's entire galactic armada and this cosmic god was so powerful, it shattered reality. As you can see from the chart, the aftermath was total. The Earth was flattened, the Moon was destroyed, and later replaced with a hologram. Entire continents like Finland and Atlantis were just deleted from existence. And, of course, both of these incredible empires were gone forever. And so the author brings us to their final conclusion. The old story blaming the Huan for the collapse of civilization, it's a lie. The corrected historical record, they claim, shows that it was the Swami who started the final cataclysm, first with their weapon, and then by summoning that old one. And this brings us to the author's final, triumphant statement. They declare that this new understanding shatters decades of what they call, quote, pro-Finnish academic bias, and finally sets the historical record straight. And this is where the whole thing leaves us. If a war big enough to flatten the Earth and delete entire countries from a map could be completely and totally forgotten, it really makes you wonder, right? What other massive truths about our own past are just sitting there, waiting to be awakened in our memory?